Transmigrated as a disabled protagonist, how should I continue the script? Chapter 12, Encountering on the Road. Dazai Osamu did not bring Yakimaru back to the Port Mafia headquarters, but instead went straight to the clinic from the beginning. Mori Ogai, wearing a white coat, sat behind his desk, swiftly writing down one plan after another. Hearing the sound of the two returning, Mori Ogai turned his chair, interlocked his fingers, resting them on his knees, and spoke with a knowing tone, "Dazai-kun, it's been a while since you've come here to see me." Dazai Osamu, in a foul mood, dragged Yakimaru inside and closed the door behind them. "You still haven't given me the information about those with healing abilities." "Oh, so that's what this is about." Mori Ogai tapped his fingers on his thigh, his slightly raised hair and bangs giving him a less serious appearance. Under Dazai Osamu's indifferent gaze, he casually said, "Her name is Yosano Akiko, ability, Thou Shalt Not Die. She can save anyone from near-death injuries in one go. In terms of healing abilities, Miss Yosano is the rightful Angel of Death." Dazai Osamu continued asking, "Where is she?" Mori Ogai pulled open a drawer and handed him a prepared list. "Take care of these people for me, and I'll tell you where that ability user is." Dazai Osamu. Yakimaru's sixth sense warned him, the person in front of him had no good intentions. The blonde girl once again stood in front of Mori Ogai. As Yakimaru half drew his sword, Dazai Osamu stopped him and pressed the blade back. Dazai Osamu said to Mori Ogai, "This condition was agreed upon earlier. I have no obligation to do any extra tasks for you, newly appointed boss of the Port Mafia." Mori Ogai smiled lightly and said, "Dazai-kun, do you know what the optimal solution is? Under the premise of not sacrificing anything, both the overall goal and sub-goals can be ideally achieved," Dazai Osamu smoothly replied. "In reality, such a solution rarely exists." Mori Ogai revealed his intention, "I want to invite you to join the Port Mafia." Dazai Osamu glanced at the oblivious Yakimaru and shrugged, "I'm not interested for the time being." Mori Ogai nodded, "Indeed, for the time being." His eyes, from a certain angle, were red rather than purple, and with a soulless, demonic gaze, he stared at Dazai Osamu. "Sooner or later, you'll be interested." Yakimaru suddenly grabbed Dazai Osamu's hand, pulling him behind. The tip of the sword struck the ground, drawing a single character. "Leave." Mori Ogai's pupils tightened as he stared at Yakimaru, postponing Dazai Osamu's issue for later. "Yaki-kun, it seems my analysis of you was completely wrong. You understand words, what an exceptional natural talent for learning." He couldn't help but applaud, saying to both Dazai Osamu and Yakimaru, "To be honest, I'm truly impressed." The fragments of diamonds refracted light even more intensely than before, and the complete image was undeniably captivating. He tore up the list he had written, openly changing his mind, and tossed the pieces into the nearby trash. Standing up, one hand in his pocket, he exuded a rough yet mature charm. "Very well, you can go ahead and find the doctor, and I'll be responsible for providing the intelligence. But there's one thing." Mori Ogai raised his index finger to his lips, as if unable to surpass a limitation. "Before this agreement loses its effectiveness, you cannot join the Port Mafia, nor can you join any other organization. My clinic will always welcome you, and I will ensure that no other forces disturb you." How does that sound? This offer was indeed tempting, and Dazai Osamu was intrigued. However, before making any move, he carefully observed Yakimaru. "Do not trust this man." Yakimaru tightly gripped his hand, not loosening his hold. "On guard." Dazai Osamu closed his eyes in thought, and after opening them, he said, "The intelligence exchange can continue, but I do not accept your other conditions. If I have any requests, I'll contact you again." Mori Ogai, disappointed, said, "Dazai-kun, you're clearly interested." Dazai Osamu smiled and replied, "There's nothing I can do. Sometimes you just have to trust your instincts, and it just so happens that Yakimaru's instincts are very sharp, making me feel like you're plotting something behind the scenes." His tone lowered, and for the first time, the young man gave Mori Ogai a slightly chilling feeling. You're worried too, aren't you? Don't worry, as long as I exist, I'll prove the previous boss's final words for you. If you ever change your mind and decide to kill me, be sure to give me a quick and painless death. Lowering his head, Tezuka Osamu smiled in the shadow, speaking each word slowly and clearly. Otherwise, be careful of the ghost knocking at your door in the middle of the night. That ghost could be a demon, or it could be someone capable of slaying demons. Half an hour after Tezuka Osamu had taken 2 boxes of instant noodles, syringes, rabies vaccines, and various bandages and supplies, Mori Ogai sat dejectedly in his chair, lamenting to his ability, Elise, am I really not fit to be the boss? The port mafia is in complete chaos, only a third have submitted, we lack manpower, and we have no weapons. If this continues, I'm going to work myself to death. The blonde girl, eating her cake, gave a vague and unclear response. Diamonds are always precious, aren't they? She bit her fork, sharing a similar thought process with Mori Ogai, yet have a persona of disdain for Mori Ogai, feigned a sweet smile. Isn't it more interesting to take the diamond sensei has his eye on? These two wouldn't use it for themselves, but they certainly wouldn't let anyone else have it either. For example, the Special Division's agent and their bodyguard, Fukuzawa Yukichi. Natsume Soseki had 2 disciples, namely Fukuzawa Yukichi and Mori Ogai. Compared to Fukuzawa Yukichi, who focused on accumulating connections and building a foundation, Mori Ogai had already pulled ahead, standing firmly on the tripartite framework objective. With the port mafia's resources in his hands, he was striving to save the collapsing organization. Naturally, he was on guard against another person who might steal away valuable assets. Human resources are incredibly important. A single Dazaikuin and a single Yakikuin could surpass the value of countless individuals. On the other side, Fukuzawa Yukichi had recently been enjoying smooth success, which was most evident in his more gentle expression, his sharpness now tempered, lacking the coldness once associated with his title as the Silver Wolf. From a moment of pity towards a remarkably intelligent young boy, he casually lent a hand, and that person clung to him, eventually becoming his partner. Over the years, he felt increasingly that his decision was the right one. Helping the weak, protecting ordinary citizens, and maintaining order, these tasks, too dangerous for the military and police, seemed perfectly suited for him. The only headache was that Ranpo couldn't go out alone and required Fukuzawa to often keep him by his side. After consecutive successful cases, the renowned detective Edogawa Ranpo, wearing his signature black glasses, no longer looked down on the thoughts of ordinary people, influenced by a sense of belonging. Fukuzawa-san once told him, "My ability to see through everything is a special ability, and it should be used for doing good." But what exactly is a good deed? At this moment, Fukuzawa Yukichi and Edogawa Ranpo had just returned to Yokohama, having completed their latest bodyguard mission. In the back seat of the taxi, Edogawa Ranpo looked completely bored, his eyes wandering everywhere like a curious child fascinated by the world. As they passed by a small park, he suddenly glanced toward a park bench where, in one corner, 2 boys were sitting with cups of instant noodles in hand. They're eating instant noodles, and it seems to smell really good. Being a lover of snacks, Edogawa Ranpo patted his hungry stomach, his mind wandering. Suddenly, his eyes suddenly focused, his attention locking onto the black-haired boy on the right, and he instinctively grabbed Fukuzawa Yukichi's arm. Fukuzawa Yukichi, dressed in a kimono and holding his sword, sat in front and turned back, puzzled. "Ranpo. President, look over there." Edogawa Ranpo hurriedly said, showing a bit of the general awareness he had learned from his mentor. Just as the taxi drove past the park, Fukuzawa Yukichi barely caught a glimpse of 2 figures, confirming that they were 2 unfamiliar boys, appearing slightly younger than the 18-year-old Ranpo. "Is there a problem?" Fukuzawa Yukichi asked cautiously, not daring to underestimate Ranpo's intelligence. At some point, Edogawa Ranpo had removed his black glasses, and his green eyes stared blankly out the car window. His pupils slightly dilated, as if he had been startled by something unseen. That person. Who? The boy with the black ponytail. Humans are truly resilient. He spoke in a low voice, and what he said not only startled Fukuzawa Yukichi but also the driver. Fukuzawa-san, why is it that some people, without skin, without limbs, without sight, hearing, or smell, still manage to survive? Is this the survival instinct my parents once talked about? Edogawa Ranpo didn't quite understand, but after witnessing it, he gained a bit more insight into human nature. He wants to keep living. But the person next to him wants to die. One seeking survival, the other seeking death. How could such a bizarre combination exist in this world? Driver, stop the car. Fukuzawa Yukichi shouted, and the driver slammed on the brakes. Since retiring from his profession as an assassin and choosing to help others, Fukuzawa Yukichi immediately misunderstood Edogawa Ranpo meaning. He opened the car door and, pulling the stunned Ranpo along with him, called out, "Let's hurry and go save them." The physically weak Edogawa Ranpo, being dragged along in a rushed sprint, was completely out of breath, unable to say a word. His vision filled with stars, his legs turned to jelly, and he wanted to say, "If we don't go, they will come find us on their own. No, please. Please, slow down. Ranpo-sama is going to die from this 100-meter dash." Upon reaching their destination, Edogawa Ranpo seemed to have his soul drifting out of his mouth, his expression one of complete resignation. Fukuzawa Yukichi, with a serious face, approached the two in front of them. Just as he was about to speak, the black-haired boy holding the instant noodles suddenly became alert. The boy's hand moved toward the hilt of his sword. Edogawa Ranpo quickly rushed over, spreading his arms wide to protect the startled Fukuzawa Yukichi. "Don't attack. He's a good person." Yakimaru, upon seeing Ranpo step in, forcefully halted his movements. Edogawa Ranpo's explanation wasn't directed at Yakimaru but rather at the one in charge, Tezuka Osamu. However, Tezuka, who was eating instant noodles, blew on the hot broth and glanced at the two who had rushed over, his thoughts not quite aligned as he casually remarked, "A good person who's killed before, huh?" Edogawa Ranpo firmly replied, "Of course. The president has saved many people, and the ones he killed were all bad guys." Tezuka Osamu, too lazy to care, said, "You all continue. Justice only comes after the fight." Edogawa Ranpo, frustrated, pointed at him, his green eyes flashing with cold rationality, and sharply stated, "He has many disabilities. You want to help treat him, don't you? We have a doctor." Oh. Only then did Tezuka Osamu give the other person a serious look. Edogawa Ranpo pulled on Fukuzawa Yukichi's kimono sleeve, creating a safe distance. Catching his breath, he continued, "President, phew, give him a business card. Someone like him, if not thoroughly investigated, won't feel at ease. Let's leave, or he'll directly attack you." Fukuzawa Yukichi cautiously regarded the indifferent black-haired boy. As someone skilled with a sword himself, he could tell that the black-haired boy was a master, and he trusted Ranpo's judgment. Fukuzawa Yukichi sat across from Tezuka Osamu, placing a business card in front of him without adopting an air of superiority. "If you need help, make sure to contact us." Just from Edogawa Ranpo's words alone, he had made his decision. This was trust. Tezuka Osamu could hear the sincerity in the elder's voice. He took the business card and glanced at it, and his previously indifferent attitude suddenly shifted. The card bore the name of someone not well known in Yokohama, yet the identity was undeniably impressive. Armed Detective Agency. President, Fukuzawa Yukichi. The Armed Detective Agency, the only organization in Yokohama authorized with a skilled business permit. "Our doctor is Yosano Akiko," Edogawa Ranpo said, catching his breath as he delivered the most critical point. "You've heard of her, haven't you?" The widely known detective, famous among the police, spoke with pride. His piercing gaze, which seemed to see through people's hearts, locked onto Dazai Osamu. This was their first meeting, and Rampo subtly engaged in a mental fight with Dazai Osamu, unwilling to let him look down on the armed detective agency. Dr. Yosano works with us, you know. Edogawa Rampo wiped the sweat from his forehead, childishly thinking to himself, Fukuzawa-san, don't worry. After taking the first one, we can keep trying to take the second and the third. If we can poach the people the port mafia doesn't recruit, the armed detective agency will win. Dazai Osamu remained silent for a moment, then gave a slight nod. If there are no accidents, I will come visit. Edogawa Ranpo corrected him, it's you guys. Don't treat him like your possession. The one the president and I are primarily interested in meeting is this person next to you. Fukuzawa Yukichi said nothing, quietly agreeing with Ranpo reasoning. Dazai Osamu instinctively felt conflicted by Edogawa Ranpo's sharpness, but it wasn't something he found too difficult to accept. Alright, farewell then. He tossed the cup of instant noodles into the trash and dragged Yakimaru away, wondering why such people were so easily drawn to him. Could it be that Yakimaru had some sort of attention-attracting ability or aura? No matter. Yakimaru was with him now, and it wasn't up to these two strangers to take him away. At that moment, Yakimaru's keen intuition kicked in once more. He instinctively tried to grasp her hand, wanting to convey his protective feelings toward her. Dazai Osamu stiffened, hesitating for a moment before agreeing, though his hand felt somewhat awkward being enveloped in another's palm. A cold hand seeking warmth from his own warmth. What kind of hand-holding was this, Yakimaru? Chapter 12 End.